This is Slobodan Milošević. Slobodan Milošević presented himself as a Serbian defender, but between 1989 and 2000, he ruled with an iron fist. He fueled wars in Croatia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. Ethnic cleansing, forced deportations, and mass killings followed. The ICTY accused him of genocide and crimes against humanity. Overthrown at the start of the new millennium, he was arrested in 2001 and put on trial in The Hague in 2002. He died in 2006 before a verdict could be reached. This is the story of a hardline dictator whose path is rarely told. And in this video, you'll learn why. Slobodan Milošević was born in eastern Serbia on August 20th, 1941. His childhood unfolded between the ruins of World War II and the rise of the Soviet Union as a global power during the Cold War. He studied law and joined the League of Socialist Youth of Yugoslavia, earning respect and admiration from his peers for his natural ease as a leader. In the 1960s and 1970s, he moved through Belgrade politics. He also became president of major companies, which elevated him within the League of Serbian Communists, the SKS. He had the soul of a bureaucrat. But he also understood what was happening in the streets, a surge of nationalism mixed with ethnic hate speech and separatism. Milošević was shrewd. Even if he wasn't born from those movements, he positioned himself as one of their most useful figures.
Tenía ambición y tenía básicamente, él era resultado de una educación comunista, socialista, durante la era comunista después de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, y pensaba y actuaba así, buscaba preservar su poder, y algo sucedió, algo llamado el auge del nacionalismo ocurrió en los años 80, y él simplemente se subió a esa ola.
He presented himself as a defender of the Serbian people and a guardian of their culture against what he called the advance of the West. He went from being a grey-suited official to a kind of spokesman for the most extreme nationalism. After years of political maneuvering and alliances within the most hardline sectors, he brought down his opponents, including his mentor Ivan Stambolic. In 1989, he reached the presidency of Serbia. It was a turbulent era, marked by ethnic violence and the collapse of the Soviet Union, which shook every satellite nation in the region. That same year, his famous speech at Gazimestan, delivered on the anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo, catapulted him into nationalist legend. He promised to protect Serbs from any enemy, even if it meant spilling the blood of innocents.
Milošević ha llevado a su país a la guerra en Croacia, Bosnia, Kosovo. Ha traído limpieza étnica, campos de concentración. Ha traído desempleo, pobreza, corrupción, represión y miedo.
In the early years of his rule, the Balkan Wars erupted. From 1991 onward, the 6 former Yugoslav republics turned against each other, with Serbia at the center of the storm. Milošević became a key actor in that conflict. Massacres followed. Media campaigns helped blur responsibility and bury the horror under propaganda. That is why he earned the nickname, the Butcher of the Balkans. And that is why he became the first serving head of state indicted for war crimes. Among the darkest pages of the Balkan Wars, one crime stands above the rest, the Srebrenica massacre. Srebrenica is a municipality in eastern Bosnia and Herzegovina. By early 1995, it had been declared a UN-safe area. But in July of that year, it fell into the hands of Bosnian Serb forces. Forces that, in part, received political and military support linked to Milošević. During the takeover, Bosnian Serb troops hunted the Muslim population with the aim of annihilating it. More than 8,000 men and teenage boys were executed within days. It was planned systematic genocide designed to erase Bosnian Muslims from Srebrenica. Women and children were starved, terrorized, and then expelled by force. The bodies of husbands, fathers, and older brothers were dumped into unmarked mass graves.
En el momento de la matanza, la ciudad se encontraba bajo la supuesta protección de 400 cascos azules holandeses. Soldados serbobosnios al mando de Ranko Mladić sitiaron la ciudad y durante varios días asesinaron a más de 8.000 varones musulmanes de todas las edades. Mientras hombres y niños eran separados para ser ejecutados, las mujeres y las niñas eran enviadas al territorio controlado por el gobierno de Bosnia.
The attack included torture and firing squads. It even included the kidnapping of Dutch soldiers who had been deployed as part of a humanitarian mission. Bosnian Serb forces threatened to execute 55 hostages. They also threatened to blow up a factory in Potocari, where thousands of civilians and dozens of UNPROFOR support soldiers were sheltering. Images of these crimes traveled around the world. They showed that the violence inherited from World War II was still alive. They also proved that modern governments were still capable of the most extreme barbarity. Srebrenica became a symbol of the failure of Western peacekeeping. The UN insisted the area was protected. Months later, an unprecedented campaign of ethnic cleansing was carried out in full view of the world. Milošević was not personally on the ground pulling triggers, but his support was essential for men like Commander Ratko Mladić, Chief of Staff of the Army of Republika Srpska, to carry out those atrocities. And Srebrenica was not the only place where the hell of the Balkan Wars unfolded, with Milošević looming in the background. The Siege of Sarajevo. For 1,495 days, Sarajevo became the world capital of pain. For almost 4 years, between 1992 and 1995, what is now the main city of Bosnia and Herzegovina was surrounded by Bosnian Serb forces and the Yugoslav People's Army. Once again, the objective was ethnic cleansing. Old resentments were turned into policy, and peoples who had lived side by side inside Yugoslavia were pushed into a war of extermination. During the siege, 12,000 people died. Another 50,000 were wounded. 85% of the victims were civilians, trapped in the crossfire and targeted in their daily routines. As with Srebrenica, Milošević's involvement was indirect, channeled through support for the Bosnian Serb forces that crushed Sarajevo. In 1992, representatives of Bosnia and Herzegovina demanded that he withdraw invading troops. Milošević agreed, on one condition: he would withdraw only soldiers who were not native to the region. In other words, he would remove only a small portion of the forces strangling the city. It was a mockery. His hands were as stained with blood as those of the snipers watching Sarajevo's avenues, soaking the pavement with civilian blood. There was no safe refuge. Bread lines were attacked, hospitals were bombed, schools became improvised cemeteries. The siege of Sarajevo was not a battle in the classic sense. It was collective punishment designed to break the will of a civilian population. And it all unfolded under the shadow of Milošević's power. But the Serbian leader still had another mission to carry out. To do it, he would harden his methods even further. Between 1998 and 1999, Milošević's repression intensified in Kosovo, a region marked by high tensions between Albanians and Serbs. In previous years, Albanian nationalism had surged. Out of it emerged the Kosovo Liberation Army, the ELK, a paramilitary group that deeply worried Milošević's government. His response was blunt: annihilation or mass expulsion.
En 1998, Milošević comenzó a expulsar a los albaneses étnicos de Kosovo, creando casi 1 millón de refugiados. La indignación occidental por una masacre de civiles a principios de 1999 preparó el escenario para una campaña de bombardeo masivo por parte de la OTAN. Durante 78 días y a un costo de $3.000 millones, cayeron las bombas.
The terror campaign was staggering. Villages were burned to the ground. Systematic rapes were used as a weapon of war. Arbitrary executions followed. So did the torture of the ELK's main leaders. The objective was twofold: destroy the paramilitary threat and carry out another ethnic cleansing, this time aimed at Albanian Kosovars. In total, more than 800,000 people were driven from their homes at rifle point, under the threat of being murdered in cold blood. And displacement was not the end of suffering. Refugee convoys were frequently attacked by secret militias. They were often made up of the same men who promised civilians they would not be harmed if they left. This scenario pushed NATO into military intervention. In 1999, NATO bombed Yugoslavia and further isolated Milošević's regime. NATO framed the strikes as a humanitarian war. Milošević used that framing to fuel his propaganda, pointing to Western imperialism as the cause of all his people's suffering. But his narrative was cracking, and it was only a matter of time before the butcher of the Balkans would have to answer to justice. The new millennium found Slobodan Milošević surrounded by pressure, inside and out. The iron fist he used to control society could no longer contain a population sick of repression and lies. Massive protests erupted, and there was no way to stop the wave of rejection he faced. The slogan was "Gotov je." It meant, he's finished.
Bo por odpor. Gotov je. Él ha terminado.
Gotov, ya, él ha terminado. Fue atrevido, audaz, valiente decir Milošević, él ha terminado. Ni siquiera dijeron Milošević, dijeron él ha terminado. Todos sabían a qué se referían.
His image collapsed under unemployment and food shortages. And then came the blow he could not hide: a historic electoral defeat. Milošević refused to acknowledge it, and that refusal only enraged a society ready for change, ready to leave state violence and repression behind.
El régimen desata una ola de golpizas y arrestos. Con cada arresto, los manifestantes aparecen rápidamente en las comisarías y prisiones.
De los años 1960.
Public pressure in Belgrade, combined with the loss of support within his own circle, forced him to pull repressive forces off the streets. It was the first visible crack in a tyrant who, for a decade, had seemed untouchable.
Sabíamos que Milošević puede resistir solo con el apoyo de la policía y el ejército. Y sabíamos que si puedes influir en la policía y el ejército a su alrededor y hacer que piensen si deberían apoyar a Milošević o no, o al pueblo, él no puede sobrevivir.
In April 2001, he was arrested for corruption and embezzlement of public funds. That initial charge did not hold as expected. But months later, he was handed over to the International Criminal Tribunal in The Hague. It was historic. For the first time, a former head of state would be tried for war crimes in an international court. But it soon became clear that prosecuting a dictator for brutality carried out in the chaos of a savage conflict would not be simple. In 2002, the trial of the Serbian dictator began. In The Hague, A legal process unfolded in which Milošević was accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, allegedly committed during the Yugoslav wars. Images of his transfer by helicopter traveled around the world. For many across the former Yugoslav nations, it marked a turning point. The sheer volume of testimony and documentation, evidence of blood-stained orders and coordinated campaigns, turned the trial into an odyssey. Prosecutors had to navigate mountains of material, competing narratives and conflicting accounts, all to determine Milošević's degree of responsibility.
At the war crimes trial of Slobodan Milošević today, the former Yugoslav dictator maintained his defiance. After hearing more graphic descriptions of the atrocities he is accused of ordering, Milošević angrily denounced both the charges and the United Nations tribunal itself. One judge called the defendant's diatribe irrelevant.
One of Milošević's key strategies was to attack the legitimacy of the process itself. He challenged the validity and legality of his arrest and extradition to the Netherlands. He argued that he had been seized amid social instability and that foreign forces exploited that chaos to ship him to The Hague and place him in the dock.
Se ha decidido que se tomarán acciones en varios foros para impugnar la legalidad de su detención y arresto en Yugoslavia. Y en particular, se iniciará una acción en los tribunales holandeses aquí, dentro de las próximas semanas, para impugnar la legalidad de su arresto y detención aquí.
He also tried to delay the trial by questioning the tribunal's authority. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the ICTY, had been created for cases like his. Milošević insisted it was biased. He claimed it had an ideological agenda against him, and he attempted to lean on other international institutions to challenge the validity of the proceedings.
La estrategia general es que utilizaremos todos los foros fuera del TPI para impugnar su detención ante el TPI. Así que, por ejemplo, los tribunales holandeses, la Comisión Europea, probablemente acciones en la Asamblea General. Estamos tratando de iniciar algo en la Asamblea General y su posición ante el TPI aún está en el aire porque...
Another factor that slowed the case was his repeated absences. Milošević fell ill on numerous occasions during the proceedings. At first, he acted as his own defense attorney, relying on his legal training. Over time, however, he brought in advisors to represent him. He understood something clearly. A conviction was highly likely, and he wanted to control every possible variable that might influence how harsh the tribunal's judgment would be. After years of waiting, on March 11, 2006, the trial of Slobodan Milošević took an unexpected turn. It was a turn that left his victims without the ending they needed.
La muerte de Slobodan Milošević, no se puede estar feliz por la muerte de alguien, pero la muerte de Slobodan Milošević trae un cierre al proceso, a su juicio y a todo lo que Serbia pasó durante su gobierno. Durante los últimos 5 años, desde que fue extraditado, Serbia vivió una vida diferente, pero su muerte, todos estaban esperando algún tipo de resultado de su juicio y nadie esperaba este tipo de resultado. Todos esperaban que él fuera, todos los serbios esperaban que fuera condenado, aunque no estaban de acuerdo con por qué estaba haciendo, de qué se le acusaba.
Milošević was found dead in his cell on the morning of March 11, 2006, at the tribunal's detention center in Scheveningen in The Hague. His death was made public the next day, and that delay sparked immediate suspicion. The tribunal's president called an emergency hearing.
I would like to take this opportunity to express my regret at the death of Slobodan Milošević yesterday morning. I would also like to convey my profound disappointment that the trial against Slobodan Milošević will not be concluded. It is extremely unfortunate that the victims and their families will not have a final answer in this case on the responsibility of the accused.
The first reaction was pain. With Milošević's death, The possibility of a verdict vanished. Any chance of closing the case, of hearing a final judgment in court, was buried with him. A forensic investigation began immediately. Authorities needed to determine the cause of death. Milošević had been under regular medical supervision, his health monitored throughout the trial.
A Dutch forensic team, including coroners, carried out an examination of Slobodan Milošević and his cell yesterday. Because the Dutch coroners who examined Milošević were unable to establish the cause of death, an autopsy was ordered without delay as required under Dutch law. The autopsy will take place in the course of today.
While the investigation unfolded and a second medical opinion was awaited, theories spread fast. Some suggested Milošević had taken his own life. Others claimed that someone had provided a poisonous substance, something that could trigger fatal heart failure, so he could not implicate other people connected to his crimes. Men who, at the time, still held positions of power in the Russian Federation and other countries in the region. In the end, the forensic team issued its conclusion.
Según los patólogos, la causa de muerte de Slobodan Milošević fue un infarto de miocardio. Además, los patólogos identificaron dos afecciones cardíacas que sufría Slobodan Milošević, las cuales, dijeron, explicarían el infarto de miocardio. El Ministerio Público de La Haya informó al secretario que aún se llevará a cabo un examen toxicológico. Se ha informado al tribunal que el informe final se emitirá lo antes posible.
The final report concluded that Milošević died of natural causes. It ruled out the presence of any substance that could have triggered a heart-related collapse. In March 2006, the ICTY brought the trial of Slobodan Milošević to a close with a hearing that acknowledged what his death had done to the process. Without an accused, there could be no verdict. And without a verdict, there could be no final form of justice inside that courtroom. The authorities did not mourn Milošević because he was gone. They mourned what his death took away, the chance to deliver answers to people who desperately needed them to close a painful past. The trial of Slobodan Milošević marked a before and after in international justice. Even without a sentence, it sent a clear message. No leader, no matter how powerful, is completely beyond accountability. His death left a legal void, but it did not erase the memory of the victims, and it did not erase the precedent. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you like this content focused on the most wanted criminals of the 20th century, we invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications for our channel. Without further ado, we'll see you in the next installment of Military History. Thanks for joining us.